I've been having so much fun making these videos with the leadership board to introduce our new mission statement and our vision statement and our core values. If you've missed one of the videos so far, please go check them out online on our YouTube page. And there are more videos coming in the next couple of weeks. But I was thinking about Mavis's statement today. First, how brave she was to share that, but also just how she mentioned how she felt ashamed after her divorce. And it made me think of another woman I knew in my previous congregation in Pennsylvania who had gotten sick from cancer a few years before I became the pastor out there. During her cancer treatments, apparently she felt embarrassed to show herself in church. The way she looked, she didn't want to look that way. And she also felt like God no longer loved her, like God had decided that she was no longer good enough for love. And so she stopped coming to church. Even though she only lived literally a couple minutes away, the journey was just too hard, too far. And the longer she was away from church, the more embarrassed she became to return. She was afraid people would ask her where she's been, or worse, celebrate her return in such a way that only reminded her of how ashamed she was. I visited her sometime within the first couple years as pastor, as I was trying to visit everyone in the congregation. And I continued to see her on and off throughout the years. She worked locally, and I would see her around once in a while. But I could never convince her that the church, and God even more so, is big enough to love her, no matter what's happened in her past, no matter what her history is. I mean, she would tell me, oh yeah, Pastor, I know that. But it was clear in the way she said it that she didn't really believe it. This isn't a phenomenon that just this one person has experienced. I know there are people in this congregation here who feel a similar way. And I know there are others who feel that way about the church in general. Because they haven't gone to church in a couple years, they feel like now, well, they're just damned to eternity to all hell, damned to hell for all eternity, so why try to change things anymore? And I wonder, what can we do to make the gospel message so loud and visible that everyone in our community who feels this way sees and hears the gospel that we know? What can we do to make the gospel so warm and so strong that it melts even the coldest heart and breaks even the strongest hearts? Because wouldn't you agree with me that we have the most amazing story to share? We say to Adam and Eve, you are loved. And Cain, you're loved too. Abraham, you foxy spirit. Sarah, you fiery beauty, you are loved as well. And Hagar and Ishmael, parents of Islam, you're loved too. Moses and all you hard-hearted and stiff-necked Israelites, guess what? You're loved as well. And the list could go on, but it's not just that you're loved. It's David, through all your adventures, God has cared for you. Solomon, you are clothed with wisdom and splendor. Daniel and those 3 fiery brothers, God has protected you from all harm. Jonah, God opened your eyes to see how great God's love truly is. Joshua and Esther, God filled you with exactly what you need and placed you where you need to be to save all people. And that list could go on. But it's not just that you are loved and you are cared for. Paul, the hunter of Christians, Christ put God's love in you. Peter, that thick-skulled Hulk, Christ healed your shame. Mary Magdalene, more than friend of sinners, Christ restored your hope. James, that rule-setting friend of Jesus's, Christ showed you the meaning of grace. Judas, God's betrayer, Christ gave his body and his blood, his entire life on your behalf. You see, the message of the cross isn't simply that you are loved and that you are cared for, but that God values your life, your existence, your salvation above all else. One way to understand the story of the cross, one of the traditional ways, is to say that God traded all that God had in order to buy you back from the clutches of sin and death. Though I kind of just like to say, God values us so greatly that undoing creation wasn't an option. Getting rid of us wasn't an option, but neither was letting us rot in the brokenness that is this existence. And so on the cross, God collected all the broken parts of creation and in the resurrection used them to begin a new creation that cannot be broken. However you want to describe it, the message is the same. You are worthy beyond measure. Not because you did anything to make yourself valuable, not because you proved your worth, not because you did 10 tasks that made it showed God that you are exceptional, not for anything you've done. You are worthy beyond measure simply because God values you. God values your life. God values your love. And God would not give you up for all the gold and the diamonds in the world, not for all the gold and diamonds in all of creation. Our vision is that everyone we meet will come to know what God has already told us loudly and clearly, that they too are deeply valued by God, that by God's grace, they, just like us, are worthy of life and love. That is what we are striving for here at Mount Zion, a day when everyone we meet, everyone who comes through those doors, everyone we walk past on the street, everyone we see at school and at work, everyone that we encounter at Tosa Cares and every one of our ministries, that everyone we meet comes to know the truth of the gospel, that they have God's image imbued on them, and that God has said, you are worth so much than the birds of the air. You are worth so much more than the flowers of the field. You are my most precious and prized creation, and you, because I said so, are worthy of life. You are worthy of love, and my love will never leave you. Amen.